Okay.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is the 45th episode. I've got my boy, Aaron Lambert. Aaron's a good dude he's originally from Louisiana. You're in Nevada now.
Yeah.
We met some time ago and stuff too. But why don't you kick us off? Kind of tell us like who you are, what got you into REI in the first place, like how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I'm originally from Denham Springs, right outside of Baton Rouge. A lot of people, unless you're from the South, don't even know what Denham Springs is, but um, pretty much tell people I'm from Baton Rouge. And I live in Vegas now. I've been here since 2020. A little bit about my background: pipe fitter, construction worker for about 15 years, and then got into real estate shortly after the pandemic stopped. I started a company in 2020 that was selling COVID test kits, and we did about, I think it was like 30 million in revenue in like 18 months. Um, didn't know nothing about business. We were pretty much doing drop ship. And after the COVID died, we weren't set up to continue business. It was really me and had another partner with me, but it was a lot of work, but we didn't have a customer base, we didn't have a CRM, we didn't have anything. So that died, and I had all this cash, so I started buying real estate. Bought first, well, actually, I bought some property in California, 3 acres, and then I've been wanting to get in real estate for like 5 years. Like I did a little time. I was in prison for like 4 years, and I think I studied real estate like 3 years out of that, four. And when I got out, I kind of like tried to start. It was right when the pandemic happened. Nothing happened. I put an offer in. My first stab at real estate in 2020, probably about 3 or 4 months after I got out. I took a stab at making an offer on a piece of property that was for sale right just down the street from my house. I didn't get the offer, but it was like, okay, that was cool. It's kind of weird. I went and walked the property like I was a buyer. I was watching all these YouTube videos on like how to wholesale and what to do. And then I had a buddy and that was flipping properties. He owned one of those home investors. And he was like, yeah, go over there, tell him this, do this, do this. Whenever you put the offer in, do it like this. I'm like, okay, cool. Man, sure enough, that property, they wanted 600,000 for it. That thing's worth like 1.2 now.
Oh yeah, easily.
Crazy, dude. Anyway, so I started buying property. I bought 4 or 5 properties in Louisiana, turned them all into have STRs, short-term rentals, midterm, and then one long-term. And then, yeah, from there, I ran out of cash, and now I've been wholesaling and fix and flipping, and kind of like that's where I am now. Still buying and holding stuff. So that's
I'm
me. I it's up to in 20, what is it, 22? Yeah. So I ran out of cash. COVID stopped. I bought all these properties, ran out of cash, joined sub two, and wholesaling and fix and flipping since then, and bought a few properties since that time.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the good thing about real estate is you can really almost continue to run out of cash because you're building equity. Like the more equity you're building, the more you can kind of borrow against that as time goes on.
Yeah. That equity building takes a while unless you're buying into it, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and it depends on the kind of properties too, right? Like it's harder to build that equity into single families, but like you and I were talking about when we went and got lunch last week, it's like if you're buying commercial, you can add pads to your RV park, or you can add spots to your mobile home park, or you can, you know, add floors or extra rooms, or there's different ways to work in additional equity by adding additional revenue streams, usually since the valuation's based off of the net operating income. But so what got you, I guess, into in into short term and midterm? Because long term is pretty straightforward. That's easy. Like you buy a house, you put somebody in it. But like short term and midterm are a little bit of a different beast.
Yeah, well, I'm all about cash flow, so long term didn't make sense. Like, I'm putting out $1,500 a month, and I'm renting the thing out for maybe 1,900, and then after, if you have any type of problems, that $400 is gone, right?
Right.
So just didn't make sense to me. Whenever I first bought, I bought 4 out of the 5 properties, and well, actually, the first property I bought in Louisiana was a condo, and I immediately knew what I wanted to do with that. I didn't know at first that it was a 30-day minimum. Um, but it worked out. So as soon as I bought the condo, I had it redesigned by one of the ladies that had been doing all these flips kind of in that condominium complex over in Baton Rouge. I think it's Cedar Ridge or the Reserve at Cedar Lodge over off of Corporate. And
Hmm.
she did really good. And then after she was done, I went down there and finished furnishing it and designing it and stuff. Well, we put it on that thing. We put it on Airbnb, and for 30-day minimum, that thing rented out like that, no problem. So I'm like, okay, this is cool and easy to get people in there. Oh, prior to that, so let me back up a little bit. Prior to me putting on Airbnb, I had somebody in Baton Rouge that was supposed to be like a midterm rental specialist, corporate housing, yada, yada, yada. And I gave her the property for 2 months and nothing. She showed it once. I'm like, yeah. And then I got to doing some research and I'm like, okay, found I knew what Airbnb was. And then I went on there, I was like, oh, I could do this, just do this for 30-day minimum, see what's up. And sure enough, we got like 4 inquiries in the first 24 hours. Well, after it posted, I think it takes 24 hours for it to post, but and I called the lady immediately. I was like, look, we're just gonna go ahead and do this because it doesn't seem to be working out with you. Um,
Hmm.
and went from there. And then I bought 4 townhomes right down the street off of Burbank and Bluebonnet, and those we had all long-term tenants in every one of them. As soon as I purchased it, I think one was moving out like, I don't know, maybe like a month later. I immediately drove down to Louisiana, me and my family. I brought my I brought my step my I think my father-in-law, mother-in-law, my kid, my wife, and we went down there and we just banged out this whole, like, just did like a flip on this whole house and turned it into Airbnb in like 30 days. That's all, wasn't no major things. Like, we didn't do any cabinets or something. We just painted everything, new hardware, fixtures, and we listed it. Same scenario. Started getting bookings like immediately, and we've been booked probably average 75% since uh, we started that one. And then so on and so forth. As the people kept moving out, the tenants moved out. We turned it into Airbnb. So that's like kind of how it started. And the reason why I got started is because cash flow. Cash flow in long term sucks. You can't even cash flow out here in Vegas unless you pick up something that has like a super stupid low interest rate, and you just get a stupid good deal. Because a lot of people with low interest rates, the really low ones are, I mean, not really, but the like 4 years ago, they have a little bit of equity because the market shot up so fast. So those, you might cash flow there on the mortgage, but then if you have to pay any type of equity payment, you're going to be cash flow like maybe just even on a long term. So it's very hard to do out here in Vegas. And from what I've seen anywhere else except like the Midwest, I heard really good stories or really good, um, people have really good success in the Midwest, like Cleveland and stuff. I guess the purchase
Hmm.
price and the rents are pretty good over there. But
Yeah, I mean, you already know the Gulf Coast, the insurance kills your PITI most of the time.
yeah, yeah, our Texas taxes.
Yep, Texas is taxes, and like I said, almost everywhere else on the Gulf Coast is usually insurance.
Yeah. Texas will rape you, man, at 3%. That's crazy. $500,000 house paying $15,000 a year in taxes.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have that bill.
Yeah, I have 2 properties in Fort Worth, or Dallas. One in Fort Worth, one in Dallas. Co-living. I mean, like I said, that's the only thing that makes sense is for me, all I'm focused on is STRs. And now I'm like trying to focus on STRs that are in desirable areas that I want to go to. Like, we're looking in Tahoe, Miami, just really hot spots because
Hmm.
Airbnb is not really doing that great if you just have a regular, Joe Blow little spot in the middle of nowhere land, that people don't care about. The reason my ones in Baton Rouge do well is because they're only 6 miles from LSU. We get a lot of families. I'm surprised how booked we stay down there.
Well, so talk about that a little bit. Did you do any research into that beforehand? Like, did you? Because obviously now there's all kinds of crazy tools like AirDNA and whatever that you can do on your STRs. But you said you bought those STRs like relatively new in your journey. So did you have any idea that they would do that well?
No clue. I knew that the long term cash flowed a little bit. And at the time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a little bit of money. And whenever I did my numbers on, I was so new to real estate, I didn't know how to underwrite great. I had a tax CPA that was she was like all real estate. She worked with she comes from Robert Kiyosaki's like tax advisors kind of group.
Mhm.
So really versed in tax savings and tax strategy to get the best bang for your buck. And then she had a calculator for me to use to plug in all the numbers. And you know, when we first did it, it made sense. And I did it to where the way that I did the numbers was I did it where without taxes and insurance because at the time I was like still making kind of good money with my COVID test kit company. So I was like, oh, I'll just pay taxes and insurance like once a year, right? Worst mistake of my life. Not really, but that was kind of stupid, but at least in my opinion. So I didn't escrow it, and my payment on my monthly payment was like 1,100 bucks. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I was getting at the time 1,700, and then we bumped it up to like 1,900 for the long term. So I was like, okay, cool. This is a cash flow. And then at the end of the year, when taxes come, I was like, oh crap, I got to pay these things. Where's the money coming from? I didn't save. So we ended up escrowing it. But yeah, so I mean, just like looking at the numbers and then, just really just took a chance, bro. I had no clue. None whatsoever. I didn't do any research on their DNA. Didn't, didn't, I just knew that I wanted to create something that was really nice and and really just hope that people would show up. So in that part of my journey, it was not like any deep underwriting, was not deep research. There was nothing that I did that was like, wow, I just really took a chance.
Yeah, and you said even with the condo, like you had no idea that there's a 30-day minimum.
Yep.
So you just bought the condo, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna throw it on Airbnb with a 30-day minimum, see what happens, and it started renting.
Yep. Yep. I get a lot of like, sometimes we get students, sometimes we'll get family members of students that come to visit their students, I mean, their kids that are traveling that live in, they're from out of state. Or
Hmm.
sometimes we have we had a couple nurses, traveling nurses. I had a lawyer that was doing I don't know, I guess he was from North Louisiana and he had to stay down here for a case and he stayed for a month. And we get all types of people, but a lot of traveling professionals and students are student related.
Well, I mean, corporate and really Burbank, the other area you were talking about, like I know both those areas fairly well, and they're pretty centralized to most of Baton Rouge. So that's kind of helpful too.
Yeah, definitely.
But like you
100%.
said, you probably just didn't know either. You're like, ah, fuck it, dude. I mean, like Burbank's easy enough to get around, so this should work, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew the locations, right? I knew they weren't too far from anything, one thing. So, yeah, I mean, that made sense for me whenever I bought them. And then, like I said, putting them on Airbnb, I just, like I said, I took a chance. But I went, like, I didn't just put them on Airbnb. I went and put them on Booking.com, put them on Verbo. I got all set up, got all automated, got the channel manager. So, we had to do as little as possible work, so, and that took time. And then I started researching like pricing strategies and stuff. And, we have some automations that are, I think, some programs that we plug in that kind of it will change our prices due to demand, season, whether or not it's booked, and like if we have a couple rooms or a couple nights open, it'll start dropping the price to get it booked. So don't have to do that manually, which helps because if I did, I wouldn't do it. That's another reason too. Another thing too, why I'm still looking to buy more SDRs, is because I wholesale a lot. I have a wholesale business. We've been doing it for 3 years, and we've wholesaled probably over 100 properties. And we come across a lot of people that are selling their STRs, and I'm looking at these things and talking to these people, and they're like, yeah, they're telling me what they're doing. They're not really doing anything pricing wise. They're not doing anything photos. They still got, your regular, like, not even professional photos. Their design is like okay, not great. They don't really go above and beyond, which nowadays, if you're doing STR, you need to go look at what the top performer is, even if it's like a freaking mansion, and go steal some design ideas from them, right? Even if it's on the other side of the country. If they're doing really good numbers, um, you want to steal some design ideas and put them in your Airbnbs, and that's what I'm good at. I'm really good at design, so and pretty decent on set them up to have the really great amenities and all that stuff for them. So STR and co-living is really my gig.
So would I guess
Fine.
like you were I guess like you were saying, so is that difficulty to stand out and STR is really mostly being hot in those hot markets? Is that why you started to look at co-living?
Co-living is just a good model because it's less maintenance, right? You don't have the constant turnover. You got about the same numbers, maybe a little better,
Hmm.
little more upfront capital, depending, right? Sometimes you can get away with, well, you know what? It might be about the same for the upfront capital because if you're going to come in and you have to redesign an Airbnb, or if you get lucky, you find one that's really good design and it's just poorly managed, when you're buying them creatively. But the upfront capital, I think, is a little more for co-living, can be, just because you're doing a lot of construction. And then,
Hmm.
but once you get everybody in there, it's pretty smooth, especially if you have a property manager. Don't catch me doing any property management for co-living because that's a nightmare. I can't handle all the text messages, man. I feel like the people that pay the less, they complain the
Yep,
most.
they
But
do.
yeah, but if your property's set up good and you got good property management, and on those deals, you'll keep your tenants, like the ones that we have in DFW. In one of our units, we've had 7 out of the 8 tenants there for 9 months. Then one just moved in, like one was there for 10 months and she moved out, and then somebody else moved in right away. So they stayed they stayed pretty much 100% occupied over there, which is good. So the DFW market is really good for the pad split model, but
Yeah, we
like
were
I said,
talking.
cash flow. So that's the only reason I'm gonna look at any one model or exit is the cash flow.
Right, which makes sense why STR would be good for that. I know a lot of people like MTR because, kind of that mix between the STR and the co-living. Like the cash flow is pretty good, the expenses are relatively low, a little bit upfront to get fixed up right and market, but
Yeah. The cool thing about MTR is you could do hybrid. So you can do MTR, and then to fill the gaps, you drop it on STR. Even though my condo is 30-day minimum, if I have a gap in between, I'm dropping it to 2-day minimum, and we get booked up. And the HOA usually doesn't catch it. Um, so if they did, I don't. They've threatened me before, but I just kind of blow them off. That was another risk too. That I'm just kind of like a high risk guy, I guess. But I mean, either well, it's kind of like high risk before, right? Now, if I'm going to go buy a property, I'm going to make sure I'm going to have deep underwriting. Like I do a lot of deep underwriting for all the properties that we get under contract. So I'm going to make sure that things cash flow positive. And like on my co-living, usually I would say average. If we're doing a co-living, we need to be a 30% cash on cash return.
Mhm.
It makes sense because we're going to be bringing partners, you know, so it's not going to be any of our money.
What, so you were talking about that being a risk, but like what are a few of the consequences if you are trying to do something that goes against whatever HOA you have in place?
I'm sure they'd probably find me or something. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's really what they do is they find people. So it hasn't really been an issue. Like they tried to say that one time. They're like, "Oh, you're." They told me like, "Oh, you're on Airbnb for 2 day minimum." I'm like, yeah. And I explained to them the reason why I had it that way at that time, and she was correct, is because I get more people to see my property. It's like an SEO tactic. So
Mm,
you do really 1 day minimum is, you get max views, right? Because everybody that's searching is going to see it. But most people are like, I would say a lot of people are 2 days anyways. So we had it on 2 day, and you get more people to see it. And then we don't have an instant book. So you can't just go on there and book it. You have to inquire. So when somebody inquires, we're like, oh, we're a 30-day minimum, right? Unless it's in that time frame that we have a 2 day. I'm like, we have some space, but they didn't ever really threaten me with anything. They just said you need to move it. Once I explained to them, they were just kind of whatever. They didn't really respond. So
yeah, it seems like every HOA is different too. Some of them are a lot more finger wagging, and some of them are just kind of laid back if you can explain yourself.
yeah, and most of them just care about the money.
I mean, that
Like
makes sense to
my
me.
guy out here in Vegas, he's got 32 of them, and if they're in a HOA, he just like, especially the smaller HOAs, he'll just go talk to the HOA, like I guess they call him the president or something, and
Mhm.
uh, it's kind of this is Vegas, so he just pay him some money. He just pays some money every week, extra, like some under the table stuff, just so they just turn their eyes, they don't see it, they turn their head.
Yeah, and then they just shut up.
Yeah, as long as there's no like complaints, and the neighbors aren't complaining like, "Hey, these people are partying," blah blah blah. Then yeah, there's really that's honestly in Vegas, like we're super heavily regulated in Vegas. Vegas is like they want you to have permits, this, that, and then if you don't have permits, you can get heavily fined. But they usually don't know about you. They're getting actually, I think they're getting a little better, but before, if they don't know about you, then meaning they haven't found you or you haven't applied for a permit, then the only way for them to know that you are operating is if somebody tells on you, like you complains about whatever, and then you'll have an open case, and then they'll come, and if they notice that you're still doing it, then they'll fine you, and so yeah,
Yeah, because I do see a lot of people will avoid that altogether just because whether they're doing STR or co-living. I see it kill a lot of deals in underwriting.
yeah. So
So is
hmm.
that a risk that you would take in any other markets other than Vegas, or is that just, or do you avoid that when you're
I
looking for
would do
co-livings?
Vegas only if my revenue was at like 120 or better a year. So the property has to be generate some high income for me to take the risk out here. And then, if I was to take the risk out here, it would be a Morby method anyway. So that's already, increased in your PITI. And then I would only do it if my guy that's out here doing it, he's crushing it. Some of his properties are doing 200 plus a year. Um, I would only do it if he advised, like, yeah, this is the area, and it has to have a pool, it has to have certain amenities, one story is better than two. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that would have to line up for me to take that risk. Now for co-living, I'd definitely do that.
Even with an
Definitely.
HOA in place, and whether it's in Vegas or another market?
It has to be one of HOA that's not gated. Out here you have a lot. Like I live in a really nice neighborhood, but it's not gated. But right next door, it's really the same exact neighborhood, and it's gated. So, and we both have HOA, but they pay like 200 bucks, only pay 47. So, but you got a lot of neighborhoods like that in Vegas. Vegas is like HOA freaking heaven. They're like everywhere. It's crazy how many HOAs they have out here. It's like every neighborhood's an HOA almost. There's certain parts of Vegas that like older Vegas that don't have HOAs, but anything new, any new builds, unless it's like custom, is usually going to have an HOA out here. But
Yeah,
yeah, like
so it's almost
to your
just
point,
impossible to avoid.
yeah, I'll do co-living without if there's no gate. And depends on the HOA in the neighborhood too. You still have to look at certain factors, right? Um,
Probably like off-street parking or on-street parking even.
yeah, you want to, yeah, definitely have to look at the layout of where how it sits in the neighborhood and check out the neighborhood, maybe even talk to the neighbors, just to kind of scope it out to make sure it's going to be cool. If it's one of those, you got some of these neighborhoods, man, you got, the roads right here, like, and then you got one house, two house, three house, like all like, and then you got like, 10, 15 foot of driveway, and then there's no street parking, a two-car
Yep.
garage. Like those won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you go into that a little bit? Like, what is kind of your strategy behind co-living? It's like when you're looking at a property in a new market, whether it be in Vegas or in Dallas, or what's your idea of a good co-living?
Well, the best co-living would be one with plenty of parking, one with no HOA. I prefer single stories, but it's single story or two-story doesn't really matter as long as it makes sense. But when you're looking at co-living, you want to go do your research on pad split, and then find out what's working in the area. Um, go out, Daddy's doing something. Yep, Daddy will give you some money later. Go out. Thank you. Um, uh, Co-living, and so pad split, they have. If you're a host, it's easier to do comping. I wish they would make it available to people that want to become hosts because it's a really good tool.
Hmm.
But if you don't have that, then you could just go on pad split, go look at the city, go look at the state and the city, and see what people are renting out, like what the rooms are renting out for. And then once you have that, then you go to your underwriting calculator, whatever it is you use, and factor in, the amount of bedrooms and what you're charging per week. And then that's how I determine if it's a good pad split or not. And then of course, deeper underwriting, you get into, your PIT, it has to cash flow. It needs a cash flow. I'd say a lot of ours do 30%. I would say minimum should be 20. A lot of people won't do it unless it's 25. So,
Hmm.
because it is a little higher risk play, just because you have to come in and reconstruct the house, right? And you can't go back and just sell it like that unless you're selling it to another passive investor. So, when you're making all the changes to the house, you have to take into the account, like, hey, one day we might have to refinance this to get rid of the seller financing piece, right? Or
Hmm.
whatever the balloon is, or we might need to sell because of XYZ. So you have to take all that into kind of account. Now I have DSCR lenders that will do co-living DSCR as long as you have a year on pad split data. So that's good. But before they didn't have that. So, but even then, some people just want to sell out and not refi. There's a lot of people on pad split that are selling their properties. Um, so yeah,
Do you find any that way, like through the back channels, like through Pad Split and whatnot?
I just started looking actually. Like 2 or 3 days ago, because my boy Michael, I don't know, you might have heard Michael Manatsakanian, but he uh he just picked up like 35, it was 35 doors that were already, I think half of them were already pad split, and then the seller just wanted to get rid of them. And he was selling his kind of whole portfolio, but I didn't ask him where he found those, but that's kind of like, I'm looking on there, I'm touching base. I just started sending, like, on there. Whenever you get on there, you can email the owners. They hadn't ever got back to me though. Oh, it's kind of weird, but so I just kind of started my journey looking there. Maybe I'll find something, maybe I won't. You don't really ever know until you pull the data and know what you're going to be paying, whether it's a good deal or not. A lot of stuff look good on the surface, but once you start digging into the weeds, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, and then I mean, there's always a reason why they're selling too, right?
Yeah, and that could be unrelated to cash flow. You won't know until you ask.
Yeah, I'm guessing you probably see that a lot in the pad split side, just like you see in the Airbnb side. Like there's probably properties that would be good properties, they're just not managed well.
Yeah. Yeah. Or people just need to move on, do something else. Like I had a pad split. I had two of them, and one of them I said, okay, I wanted to move my money somewhere else. The pad split was doing great. I just had another opportunity that was a little shorter term that I could move my money into, so and flip it and make a little more. It wasn't cash flow, but it was, a quick little chunk. So I sold my position in one of my pad splits and then moved it over here and did what I did with it, and it was still profitable. But my cash flow was great. I was getting 30% cash on cash, which is not, that's those are huge returns.
Yeah. What kind of metrics are you looking at to get your properties to that 30% cash on cash?
So I just take my total PITI and then my whatever other fees, right? Utilities. Um, we have 12% for pad split, 10% for property management, usually around 8 to 12% vacancies. And then 5% capex unless it's like a brand new spot or you rehab the whole place. Um, and yeah, and after that, that's what determines my expense, and then whatever the income is. And that's how I figure out if how many beds and baths I need too, right? Because I have a pretty nice calculator that I use that breaks everything down. I just plug in some numbers and all the data, and it tells me everything I need to know. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm sure too, like we were talking off recording about you looking at like these really big properties with a lot of rooms and a lot of baths. It's got to be way, way easier to get that higher COC when you're looking at just more available space to rent to people.
Yeah, and so Jamil Damji, what I've learned that he does, he takes every single one of his units and turns it in, however many beds he has, he's turning it into baths. I don't really know how he does it yet with because he was showing us one property and he has like 2,000 square feet and he had seven beds and seven baths. I'm like, how does that even work? Right? Well, there was a
Yeah, that
garage.
seems tight.
There was a garage, so oh, that's another factor. Two-car garage. Two-car garage or better is something you want to look at because a 17,000 square foot house can easily be turned into, I don't know how big garages are, it's 300 square foot. It can be turned into 2,000 square feet just by converting the garage. So a garage is really important because you always can get two bedrooms out of a garage. Now,
Nice.
talking with also, the best way they were like the highest performers that they say that they have is when you don't chop up the rooms. So you'll have like let's say you have five bedrooms in a house and you want to put 10. It has a huge living room. It has a huge master. It has a two-car garage. Well, you can turn the master into two. You can turn the living room into two, and you can turn the garage into two. So you'd probably have four rooms that you didn't touch, and then the other six would be, smaller rooms. But they advise to leave the master or any rooms that are there, don't chop them up, just keep them how they are, because you tend to get people that pay a little bit better and more. You could charge a little more for them. So, like if your average is 200 a week, you could charge 220.
Yeah, I mean that tracks. And I was gonna ask you too, with them having each having an individual bath, does that affect the rate that you can charge, or is it simply just like
Absolutely.
the the I was gonna say I figured it was one or the other or both, right? Like it either will decrease your vacancy or it'll increase your rate, or maybe even both.
Yeah. The one bed, one bath is definitely way more profitable than because you're looking at. I think in I think it's like $100 difference in some areas. Some areas like $150 difference. Like Miami, you're looking at like 300 to maybe like 350 for a shared bathroom, and then uh Was it 350 or 300? And then for your private bath, you're looking at like 450. And then in, I think it was Lakeland or Tampa. Tampa had it was 340 for a private and then 220 for a shared. So that 300 plus mark is where you want to be at, in my opinion, because you need less rooms to do the same amount of number, which
And that's
is great.
300 plus per week.
Huh?
Is that 300 plus per
$300
week?
plus per week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see. And I think Mesquite, Texas is the same too. I think they're like, I want to say 300. Mesquite is a little low. They're like 188 for your shared, and then they're like 275 to 300 um for your private bath.
And is that some of the data that's available to you, like through being a host with Pad Split?
Yeah, I could if I can, I could share my screen and show you.
Yeah, you can share.
Let me pull it up first because it's pretty spot on. Um, all right, here we go. Let me share this screen. All right. So, all right. So here, this is the hosting platform. Um, that, if you're a host, you get to see. And then here, like, let's pull up, what's the zip code in New Orleans?
Um, well, there's a bunch, but I would say probably
Hey, zip code.
70130.
70130. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a minute to load, but all right. So the blue areas are areas that have active pad splits. The gray areas are areas that don't have any, but still have a little bit of interest. People are, you know, they're Google searching or searching on Passsplit for that zip code as a member to live there. And then if it will pull up, here we go. Okay, so 70122. They look like they don't have any data. They only have 5 active units. They don't have any data for shared bathroom. They're looking at 237 a week for your private bath, but their occupancy sucks, 20%.
Mm.
Let's look at New Orleans as a whole. Does that give us a overall average of what they have? So they have 127 active units. Last 30 days, you had 2,800 people searching. Your average shared is 176. Your average private is 268. Occupancy is 81. This is good. 20%, 20 days to 80% occupancy, 7 days of first booking. These are pretty good numbers. You really want to see this in the 90s, in my opinion, but they're not. But if you have a really good place in a decent area, you're definitely going to be hitting those higher numbers. So let's kind of do some research here and see what areas are doing those numbers because that other one is not. So this one's 74, 3 days, and 22 to 80. So this is a pretty good zip code, 70119. Um, is this Metairie, 70124?
No, that's Lakeview. Right to the left of it, that's 7005. That's
Uh,
Metairie.
this is Metairie. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. 7005, 1, 6, and 3 are Metairie. 65 and 62 are Kenner.
Uh,
Um, and you
so,
got, oh,
okay, so 70118 has 20 active listings, 85% occupancy. That's good. And then they have the higher shared bathroom rate, 183. These are the same numbers you're getting in Dallas, or at least in Mesquite for a shared bath. It's like 188, I think. So they have
I mean,
zero upcoming. So this means if you put a property out in the zip code, you would most likely get um, some activity because there's no open spots right now. There's no open units.
it does make sense. 70118 is a zip code that's got three colleges in it. So there's a lot of support staff and students.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Loyola, Tulane, and Xavier are all in that same zip code.
Ah, okay. Wonder what this one's doing.
I don't know. That's kind of an outlier. That's actually where Tyler's at. That's like down by Bell
100%
Chase.
occupancy. It's 100% occupied. Our average occupancy 100%, 170 a week, shared bathroom, seven active units. What's over here?
That's around by the Naval Air Base. And there's usually a lot of refinery workers that start going down that way because I know they're doing a lot of turn work once you
That's
go further
probably
down
it.
the coast.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, so that's how we figure out what we're gonna make in a specific zip code. Like these out here, you got 800 active units, 42 upcoming. People are doing a lot out here because just it's just a hot spot, and they got so many people moving here. And we have all of the pro ball teams coming. We got NFL already here. We have WNBA. We got the hockey here, and then you got F1. That's 3 years. This third year into its 10 year. We got NBA already signed contracts. We got MLB. They already blew up Tropicana. We got the high speed rail system going from here to Vegas or here to LA that they're building and be done in 28. They're building a couple new casinos up this way. They just built one down here in the Southwest. They got one over here. So uh, Vegas is not slowing down for anything. So the rates are okay though. You're like 230, but if you have a nice, so my buddy has pretty decent houses, and he didn't chop up the rooms, and he gets like 230, 225 a week for his. Occupancy is pretty good. Um, this number is a little rough, 45 days to 80%, but
Mm.
it's not horrible. So, and then you have 8,000 searches. So, and then we do like, this is where I'm buying my other one, Lakeland, which if you want to be a partner in it, you're more than welcome. We need to raise 180,000. Um, and we're offering 12% cash on cash return for our investors. But this one has 205, it has zero upcoming, which is good. 1,300 searches, and then the numbers are pretty good. This is sucks, but if you go to the zip code that I'm doing mine in, which is it right here? I think this is it. This is the better zip code of all of them. Yeah, 95%, 272 and 191 for I wish this was up to 300, but it's not. 300 would make way more sense. 191 is still pretty good. So these are really good numbers. 95, 4 days, and 28. So we'd be doing really well in this one. And I could show you my underwriting too on how I do these.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
So this is my underwriting calculator, and without going super deep, the way this thing is, you want to know, like if I have seven bedrooms, and I know, let me see what this is pad split. Yeah, so let's just go and do like a real underwriting. Let me actually pull up the other one.
Someone at Tyler actually just dropped a property in here. He asked if that would be a good pad split if you want to take a look at it.
Oh yeah, let's underwrite that one.
Let's
Let
take
me pull up this, make a copy. What is, let me see. Oh, here we go. El Paso. Okay, let's see. just make a copy? Where's it at?
Hey Aaron, who's that home investor that you know down here near New Orleans, or I guess in Louisiana?
Home investor in Louisiana.
You said you were learning from somebody that was had a home investor franchise.
Oh no, that's my but he lived in Phoenix.
Oh, he
Yeah.
was in Phoenix. Okay, I thought you were saying he was from Louisiana. I was gonna say I probably know him.
No, I don't know too many investors, honestly, in Louisiana. Uh,
Gotcha.
but okay, so this, oh, let me move this guy out of the way. So this property is already, it's a 5-4-27 with a two-car garage. Great. So this is El Paso. Okay. Let me let me move this over here. So all right. 5-4 and it's 2,700 square feet. That's pretty huge. So we could
Yeah,
do a lot.
27, 24.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's got the garage.
yeah, let's see if we even have to convert the garage. So like here, this would be our dining room and common area. I don't know what this living room looks like, but it most likely will probably be turned into um like this would be a room right here. This living room would be a room. So there's six. Loft area, room, seven. So let's just go with nine because we got two in the garage. It's got a loft area and it's got a living room that we can turn. So we'll do nine on this one. So we got five and we're gonna add four. And then what is our pad split rate for this particular area? So we got 79932. 79932. Buddy. Sometimes this thing gets stuck.
Yeah, like you said, it's just kind of a shame that I guess that's not available to people that want to become a host, just if you are a host, huh?
Okay, so the problem is pad split's not even in El Paso.
Mm.
So I can't pull that. I'm super restricted to what I have at for resources, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what you can do for a pad split in this area. Now, my suggestion, if that's something you want to do as co-living, would be to reach out to um, the sub two students in the area because there's a bunch of them, and ask them what kind of exits they have for this property. Have you looked at? Is this something you have under contract?
Hmm.
No,
What?
no, we don't have this one under contract yet, Adam. This is we have a different one under contract in El Paso, but it's not
Oh, I
it's
thought
not
they
this
just signed
big.
this one.
No, I just signed up a different one. Though this
Ah,
one, I was about to lock it up, but the arrears, is 36, and then the agent wants something, the seller wants a little something. And I'm just like, I'm over
oh
that
yeah.
10%. If I'm over 10% on the entry, I just kind of back away. Um, but it's a good rate, and I think I was thinking the only exit we usually look at it in the lens of doing a wrap or wholesaling it to an investor that will wrap it. But we
Yeah,
haven't really been looking at them as pad splits. And with this being five bedrooms in the garage and just hearing you talk, I'm like, this might be a good one. But
yeah,
if there's no data in the area, I mean, that kind of makes me nervous.
yeah. For pad splits, they're just not there. I mean, people still do co-living where there's no pad split. Pad split's just they're just a company that came along and made it possible for investors to have a centralized location to you know throw their properties on, and they only market to those type of people. So people that have
Right.
a room to stay. So um, yeah, but that doesn't mean they're not doing. I mean, a really good strategy is independent living. Independent living is like your co-living, but you could put more than one bedroom in a. You can put more than one bed in a bedroom. Usually, it's like 55 plus, so you need to get like you need to know where to find those tenants. And then usually you want to stay away from two stories if it's you're doing that. But there's all different types of co-living that you could look into. But my suggestion, if that's what you want to do, I'm sure there's somebody in El Paso that's doing it. I would just reach out to the sub two leader or sub two peeps out there. And
Independent living sounds like that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like the same as sober living, just for, older populations.
yeah, yep. So I have a operator partner out here in Vegas that she's got 12 properties that she does that on, her and her sister, and uh they cash flow heavy. It's super cash flow positive on those, like way more than pad split, not way more, but $2,000 or $3,000 more than pad split on your net, which is nice. So
Cassandra said that that's her strategy, but she tries to find an independent living operator to master lease to.
nice. Okay. So what's your master lease look like?
Sorry, I can't have my camera on right now, but it really just depends on the operator. So, for example, I'm working with two operators right now that do assisted living, and I drew up a specific lease with an attorney for that because it's a little bit more, um, just a little bit more liability because they're going to be licensed assisted living homes. And if it's something like sober living or youth that are aging out of foster care or like a domestic violence shelter, it would just look a little bit different. But ultimately, for the lease, at least like 30% over market rates is kind of minimum. And they would be responsible for small maintenance, all the, everything else and vacancy. So I wouldn't be as concerned about vacancy. That's really on them. And I just make sure that I'm setting my lease to cash flow for me at least $1,000 a month is a minimum of what I'll look at.
Yeah,
And then kind of go from there. So it's kind of the beauty of co-living from an investor standpoint, owning the house without having all of the headache of actually running and managing it.
right. That makes sense. Where do you do these at?
Well, I'm working on one in Anchorage, Alaska right now, and I have another operator I'm working with that is trying to open memory care in Chicago because the state of and I don't love Chicago from an investment standpoint, but the state of Illinois needs these homes so much that they're actually incentivizing people to open new homes,
Oh,
and
wow.
especially for those that are and they want people to open three-person homes, which really is nice from a standpoint of just going and just buying a property without having to do any kind of extensive remodeling. Um,
Three persons only?
yeah, that's what they're incentivizing.
Really? What is
Yeah.
what's the I mean, is that still the same kind of you're just renting it out to an agency that's running it? And I,
Yeah, so that would be one idea. And for the particular operator that I'm working with, we have a little bit of a different relationship. So I would have some upside on her business, and she would have equity in the property. But she specializes in taking care of clients who are bedridden and more have more acuity care.
hmm,
So it's a little bit more on the skilled side. Well, she's not doing the skilled side. It's all hired out, but her per client billing for per year, and this is gross, but her per client billing per year is about $100,000 for her plan of care.
per
So
client.
at so at three clients, she's grossing 300,000. If we ran like a 70% expense ratio, there's still a lot of money to be had in just a small regular residential home.
Right. Yeah, one home pulling in 100,000. That's great.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Never
Yeah, the
even.
bottleneck really is the timing, is one, finding the rock star operator that you're willing to work with because there's a lot of shitty operators out there. And then finding the right property, within a reasonable amount of time. The other risk to that as well is most states, save for a couple like Illinois, you have to have the address before that operator can get that place licensed. So there's usually 4 to 6 months of no income for them,
Mm.
where they don't have like an interim license or really able to do that, where they need to get licensed at that property. And then it can be like another 3 months or so that they're required to have reserves for, in order to get licensed, when they're doing Medicaid building or billing, because it can take 3 months for it to catch up.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So like how I was structuring, I was buying a property here in Wasilla. It was a sub two deal, 2.99% interest rate. It was great. Fell through at the closing table though, because the sellers couldn't actually find a place to move to, with their poor credit and just their particular budget. So they they actually came to the closing table asking for me to give them a month extension and more money. And I was like, no, I don't think I could do that, because I think a month from now you're going to be in the same position, and here we are sitting with, EMD and escrow not doing anything for us. So that was kind of a bummer. But what I was working out with, my assisted living operators, was that we would essentially, quote unquote, sponsor a portion of their rents. Like our PITI was going to be around 2,200. So for the first 6 months, we would charge them 2,500, and then the lease would end. And then our new corporate master lease would be for 2 years at 5,000 a month. So that would give them time to get licensed, to get everything up and running and start generating revenue, and maybe even give them a little extra time where they're paying a lower rate, and already have clients in the house. But then after that 6 months, it would increase. So we're
That's
still covering our costs, putting a little bit of money away in the war chest on those first 6 months. And then, you know, the risk would be that they stay on and you don't have to go into like an eviction process, and then they start paying the increased rent that was already agreed to.
so. Can you do these anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. There shouldn't be a reason why you don't. When I have a boarding house, and it's pretty much run like a pad split, here in Anchorage. Of course, pad split is not here, nor is it a core market. Um, and I just didn't love the concept of like having to Frankenstein the houses to get that kind of cash flow. So I was looking at different like group home strategies and everything. And I just thought to myself, okay, a lot of their pain point is finding the property. They're not really in real estate the way that we are. So it's like, why don't I just offer to solve that pain point and say, hey, I'll go find a property and buy it for you, with the intention to lease it back with a predetermined, lease amount. And or, I could start building them up as a database for wrap buyers. So it's kind of a pain in the ass, because a lot of these people are just like, they want to be really secretive about everything. They feel like you're going to try to steal their business, and I'm like, dude, I already know how to do your business. I don't want to do your business. I just want to.
Too
I just
much
want to help
work.
you out with the real estate side.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
and
cool.
Cassandra, it sounds like your bottlenecks are really more proactive than reactive, right? Like if you were buying these properties and trying to turn them into co-livings, you would be fighting with trying to find good operators and property management and all that kind of good
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly that.
So instead of
Exactly
fighting with
that.
it on the back end, you're fighting with it on the front end because you're like, I need to find a good operator I can trust that can go get licensed, that can do the things that they say they're going to do without destroying the
Right.
house. So you can more or less execute a triple net lease on a residential property.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, so they can be done everywhere. Um, and yeah,
Yeah,
you're
look
right.
at
The
that in
issue
Baton
the
Rouge
issue is
and
the proactive
Houston.
piece. What's that?
Baton Rouge and Houston. Like I have
Yeah,
Airbnb.
there's so many deals going on in the Dallas Fort Worth area, Houston, all of those things. And I actually, you guys know Jabs Carter.
I know of him. I don't know him personally.
Okay, so yeah, he and I talked about this model a long time ago, and he's got quite a few properties already there, and he is running into that issue of like, okay, this is what I want to do, but now I'm trying to find the operators, holding the property vacant for those operators, and it's shitty timing on that end too. So It's
So you have
definitely
to,
all a matter of timing, but once it works out, it's beautiful.
is it same for everywhere, the 6 months hold time?
No, I don't think it's the same for everywhere, and even state by state and locality by locality is going to be different. I mean, I think it's one depends on the need, two it depends on their staffing and those like licensing areas.
Yep.
So, like here, they tell you 4 to 6 months, and sometimes they'll give you, like, for example, we just had two homes closed down because they were doing effed up stuff. So they were, pumping out like emergency licenses because they needed to, or rehome is like a weird word to use for humans, but they needed to find new placements for like 18 residents.
Hmm.
So it really, really varies, and it just depends. Um,
Can you share
it's
any
one of
resources to help us find operators?
Do
How is
I
it?
have any resources for you to do that?
Yeah, like how
Bro,
do you find your operators? Is that
bro, I wish there was an easy button, and I'm still trying to figure that out on like the best ways to scale from an outreach perspective, because it's really just kind of willy-nilly. It's like 1,000 different Facebook groups, and reaching out, putting your information out there and what you want to do, and then talking to a lot of people and finding the ones that, one, you want to work with, but two, they understand your model and they're okay with you winning too, because they understand that they win as well. I have a lot of operators that I've tried to work with that is like, well, why should I pay you higher than market rent? And I don't want to be in a long-term lease, and I would rather just buy my own house. And it's like, oh, that's cool. You could definitely do that, you know? So you get a lot of those as well.
sounds like a good business opportunity to create a some type of marketplace for to
That
find.
is what I'm working on. It's part of like my Mount Everest with Owners Club this year. So I'm planning on reaching out to a lot of people who are in co-living, right? Like they already have properties, or they have wraps that they're looking to sell, things along those lines, and essentially like be a dispo partner for them.
Yeah.
Um, to be able to bring these people that I've already vetted and kind of put in place, and everybody's, at the same expectation, which will kind of eliminate some of the bottlenecks on my acquisition side. Like I'd rather just partner with other people on the acquisition side, because it's like finding the operators and raising the money are two separate full-time jobs as is. But then
Yeah.
it's like when I find them and then have to stop, because I don't have like a wholesaling team or anything like that. But having to stop and go find the properties then it just really makes it a long process. Like I was working with these people that where my deal fell through for about 3.5 months before we were ready to move forward with kind of a strategic relationship, not really a partnership. And then I was able to find a house for them rather quickly, but like I said, now it fell through. So kind of back to the drawing board. It's a little bit of a long-term process when you don't have a shitload of deal flow.
Yeah. Yeah, deal flow is definitely key.
And I've been on that side of things, and I just don't love it enough to stay on that side. So I think I'd rather be on the dispo side and then provide this as an opportunity for other people that have, a lot going on the acquisition side, to be able to partner up.
Right.
Hey,
Have you looked
Cassandra,
at okay.
What up?
question for you. What we talked about, what the things that the common threads that make a good co-living property. What are the common threads that make a good co-living operator?
As far as for like a group home situation.
Just in general, like what are you seeing across your that your operators have that are in common?
Well, for me, the main thing that I look for, especially if I'm master leasing it to them, like, so the property that I have here, I own it and I have different layers of management in place. But if I were to master lease, which would be ideal, right? Because I'm less giving a crap about vacancy, like they have enough
Hmm.
skin in the game to want to, keep their rooms full, is that they're going to do it without cutting corners and, essentially being slumlords or bums, right?
Hmm.
Because like I said, I've seen a lot of properties run really shitty. So for example, um, because I kind of have like a vetting process that I'm building out as like a product basically. But um, I went and looked at a property that a couple up here had modified to an 8 bedroom. They built out the garage and they sprinklered it, because here in Anchorage you have to have like a freaking sprinkler if there's more than two people in any kind of program related housing. And they wanted like, you know, three times what it was worth because they put the sprinkler system in, but they were running a reentry program out of it. And if you guys aren't familiar with reentry, it's essentially a program where people who are coming out of the correctional facility, you know, do like a rent by the room. It could be shared, it could be private, while they're looking to get back up on their feet, because stable housing is one of the more difficult things for people to obtain when they're first just getting out of jail or prison. But you know, you have to have a good house manager to have the systems in place for that to be a successful home. So when I walked in to view the property, it smelled like weed, the trash was stacked up, the floors were dirty, and like that's absolutely the opposite of what you want to see in a transitional home. Like that means that there's no structure or anything for these guys that are coming out of the correctional facility, which means that they're less likely to be successful in staying out of jail going forward. So that pissed me off right off the jump. And I was like, you know, I was willing to pay you a little bit more, but since you guys are a bunch of bums, like, there's no way I'm doing that. so, so, you know, they get the, you know, all this cash flow of having essentially 16 rooms in this property that they bought, you know, a couple years ago for 265,000. They probably spent about 60K to put in a sprinkler system and maybe another 10 to do their shitty build out. But you know, so they're just getting the money, but they're not giving a shit about the actual program that they're running. And
Hmm.
that is not a good thread for, you know, people. So when you're talking to people and talking to them about their operations, like what are their SOPs, what's their staffing levels going to look like? If they're looking to run on a threadbare staffing level, you already know they're going to cut corners because they're too
Hmm.
cheap to fucking hire somebody for $20 an hour.
Fair.
You know, especially when they're charging, you know, low end up here for an unlicensed can be like $6,000 a pillow, or like $4,000 to $6,000 a pillow. So it's like, you know, if you're grossing, you know, 30K off a house, you should be able to bring in a couple of respite workers. You should be able to have the right like relief and different peripheral programs in place to make sure that it's a successful environment. You know, if they're trying to save a couple of grand on staffing and then have a shitty house, their house is going to get shut down.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Um, so Aaron, you were alluding to this earlier when we were looking at the data, but I wanted you to kind of give you a window to talk about your raising and what that kind of looks like. You know, what kind of partners are you taking on? What are you looking for? What kind of investments? Where are you with that?
Um, for my capital raises,
Hmm.
yeah, you know, I just really started. I mean, I have a bunch of one-offs, like people that invest with me for like my Airbnbs or my fix and flips, and 20 or $30,000 here, 40,000 short term. Some of them are long term, like they just keep their money in there and they get that there's it's kind of structured like a partnership. They just don't have any equity. On the new raises, hey, Daddy's talking. You have to be quiet if you want to be in here. On the new raises, we have we're doing equity share
Hmm.
um, and cash flow share. So like the most recent one that I tried to do, well, my first one, it was really large. Everybody should said I should start smaller, but I just tried to raise 550, but we were giving away 50% equity and 50% cash flow, which it worked out to about 12% cash on cash and 21% ROI, 5-year minimum hold. Um, so I think on this next one, on the Lakeland one, we are offering, I think it's 12, I think it might be actually 14% cash on cash return for the investor. I have to go back and look at the numbers again, but um, yeah, that's what we're looking for. I mean, I'm looking for private money partners that want to come in and have equity play, get a decent return, better than the average for better than the average for like, anything else out there, right? 12% is really good returns just for a passive investor. And these, the investors, they don't have to do anything. Just give the money and just let it sit and grow. you
So
know.
it sounds like in a lot of ways you're almost structuring it like they're LPs in a multifamily, like in a syndication almost.
Kind of, yeah. But if you do it the fractional way, the way that they do it, it's all everybody's part of the LLC, I guess. I've never done a syndication, so I don't really know. So I might be speaking ignorantly, but the way that the fractional does it, I'm not really sure if you're familiar. They handle everything. They handle all the LLC creations, all the JVs, all the operating agreements, and then they even handle all the disbursements. And then when tax season comes, they handle all the taxes for the property, all the K1s, and pretty much all of the heavy lifting on that side they handle, which I'm really, really liking because I don't want to do any of that.
And that's through Stella Han's new platform, Fractional.
Yeah, I think they've been around for a little over a year or something, maybe more, but yeah. So you have an opportunity to go in there, you build a project, and then you have an event, and you go, you have a capital raise event where everybody gets invited. I think I had about 86 people on mine. One thing I think really turned people off of my deal is there wasn't much equity, if any, in the deal. It was more of a cash flow play. So there was no upfront equity.
That
But
makes sense. I figured the thing you might have struggled with was the whole time, because not everybody wants to park for 5 years.
well, I mean, that's typical for a partnership, right? If you're coming to partner up, you're partnering up on a deal, the whole time is, most most properties are people, I mean, at least the folks that I know, they're holding for 5, 7, 10 years, right? If you're a partner on the deal. You own part of the deal, right? It's not like you're just coming in
Hmm.
and doing a short-term loan. If you want to be a PML, cool, we cash you out in like 18 months. But you know, you're just going to get that. You're not going to have any ownership, no tax advantages, nothing. You're just going to get whatever the interest rate is. That's what you get. So
Hmm.
it's totally different structure as it pertains to the investor. But and then they have the investors would, if they really needed the funds, they could exit, right? It's not written in there, but we would take a vote and they probably wouldn't get any equity. They would just get their money back and any of the cash flow that they had because they're exiting premature. So,
Hmm.
and I talked to the other fractional investors, and most of them are, unless they're doing like a flip or something, most of them are 5 years, like for the holds, especially the larger ones. So I kind of took what they're advising and what other people were doing, and like Pace Morby, Michael, a couple others that I saw on there that are kind of big. That their minimums were 5. Funny, well, Pace, as big as he is, he can raise money no problem. He raises money to then go find a property. We were raising money after we already had the property. You okay?
Yeah, and I do like the fractional concept because kind of before fractional, the only platforms that I had seen were syndication platforms that primarily were only really available to or for accredited investors. And this is something that you don't have to be accredited for. You don't necessarily have to have minimum investments in, right? Like if I came to you and said, "Hey, I want to park like 10 or 20 or 30 grand with you," as long as you're okay with accepting, smaller chunks, like you could do that.
Right. True. Um, Cassandra, your calendar doesn't have any available spots for like 2 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was just telling Adam that I don't know why that was doing that. Or excuse me, Andrew. Um, I just reset all of my networking blocks. I'm not sure why it's not showing as available.
Hmm.
Because
Andrew,
Cassandra,
I
it's
am booked
probably
out
because
for
you
like the
use
next
Calendly.
2 weeks, but not like 2 months.
yeah,
Cassandra, it's probably because you use Calendly and not Motion.
I know, Adam. Shut up, bro.
I need a problem. I need to switch to motion, but
It's great.
Hey, Adam got me on motion. I love it.
oh,
It only
nice.
it only took
Is it
Tyler a year to take that advice.
is it
It
easy
helps
to
me out with
sync with all your different
dispo.
calendars?
Yes, it's super easy, Cassandra. In fact, I'll show you really fast because
Why? Oh, bad. Sorry.
mine is always up. So I have all my calendars over here on the side, including the shared calendar with the girlfriend. I can
Hmm.
click on, click off. Um, I've got every email address that has a calendar attached to it, including the Sub 2 calendar, including a Vishkars community, the Billion Dollar Alliance calendar, including my church calendar. Um,
Oh wow, that's cool. I need to get motion then.
and it's all color coded. Plus, it has all my booking links in here. So, like, all I had to do was, Aaron, when you said you were interested in shooting a podcast, I just hit copy link and I opened my text messages and I texted it to you.
Nice.
And same thing, I've got all these are on different calendars and different schedules. And so I've got like if you just need a quick 30-minute call or a networking call or you need an hour block with me or you want to talk about me coming and doing fractional operations work for you,
Mhm.
this is a different discovery call block. And I put all of my to-do lists in here. So anything that you see that looks like this is checkable. It's a task that once I check it, it gets deleted and gets kicked out the calendar. But if I don't get to it right away, it will move it from, say, the block right here, and it'll reposition it um, beyond the current time that we're in.
Nice. Real quick, I have a question for who put that deal in here? Tyler. Tyler, you were saying that the seller wants money on the property and they're selling
Um,
for three
I think
ninety.
the seller might want a little bit, but the agent, wanted something too.
Got it.
Those arrears were,
We're
that was just
brutal.
the arrears, right? So, and I mean, I try not to go over that 10% mark, especially if, a lot of these deals were just, these sub twos, we're just assigning them, especially the out of state ones.
How long,
So if, I mean,
how
if
long
I,
have they been listed?
shoot, 100 days, I think.
Yeah,
I could,
so what's going to happen is the property's going to foreclose on the seller's not going to get anything and the agent's not going to get anything
right.
until if you might want to look into bringing in somebody that's a better closer. Not saying that you're not, but you know if they're already open to doing the sub two thing to save his credit because it's really all it's saving. He's not making any money on the sale. The agent will barely make any money on the sale. He would probably have, if they sold it, he would have to probably come out of pocket. From PropStream, it looks like they owe like 1,336. What I did
Yeah,
numbers, and he would have to come out of pocket 4 grand if he sold it.
right.
You
Yeah,
know,
no, and I think I could get it. I'm pretty confident I could get it zero entry. I think that the other part of the problem was it was really just I felt like the entry I felt like it was a little bit too high.
when they
Um,
reduce.
yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%
Yeah.
on all that.
Yeah, and then yeah, of course, anytime anything's over 100 or 10%, it has to have a really good exit plan because
Exactly.
people want their cash on cash. Like out here in Vegas, we can get up to 20%. Down.
Entry? Down
Yeah,
payment? To just to the seller?
no. To the buyer, like if I'm wholesaling it,
Oh, to the
and that's
buyer.
not including closing costs.
I
Uh,
got you. Yeah.
that's because Vegas is a hot market and there's very little inventory when it comes to like sub twos, especially if it's a non HOA sub two. So
Yeah.
yeah, but Adam, guys, it's been wonderful. I'm gonna have to get off of here. Um,
Well,
in
cool,
10
man. We'll tie this up really, really fast. I want you to have a chance to plug your socials and everything, like where people
oh,
can
yeah,
find you at.
yeah. Aaron Lambert underscore is my IG. It's just my name, Aaron Lambert, and then underscore, and then I think YouTube is the same, Aaron Lambert, and then my Facebook's the same thing.
And I have one question to ask everybody that comes on before we do the outro, and that is that if you had one piece of advice, you're sitting across the table from a brand new investor, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them that you wish you had when you started?
Um, To, well, one piece of advice would be to figure out how to raise capital faster and better. So you could scale a lot better. That would be one, and yeah, that would be the one piece of advice. How to raise capital faster.
And it sounds like these days you just need to learn how to use fractional.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm doing it, and over the course of my real estate journey, I've realized that raising capital is just like real estate; it's a relationship business, unless you just got a smoking good deal. But social media is key part to raising capital. At least it has been for me. I'm not super huge on social media, but because I have at spurts of times in the past few years intentionally did do social media, my people tend to know who I am. Not that I'm anybody, right? But when I'm talking to somebody and they see what you're doing, they see you're actively investing, they see that you got this going on, that going on, and they want to be a part of it or at least want to know what you're doing. It makes the conversation easier whenever they say, "Hey, well, I don't know how to do like last night. I had that meetup in my house, had some people come over, and they were talking to some other people there, and they were telling them about what I do, and then I ended up having a conversation with them, and they were like, "Hey, well, I have some money, and I really want to, start fixing and flipping. I don't know." And then the other lady was like, "Yeah, I want to actively fix and flip. I've been doing private money lending and stuff, which I'm still open to. Like, how do you think we can get into it?" So that's just kind of opened up the door. Just being social in general with social media is like a big part of it. So, um, yeah,
Beautiful,
capital.
man. Yeah, so learn how to capital raise and be social and or be out there on social media.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, social media gets you out there. Like Michael raised freaking $800,000 in 72 hours because he had a brand, right?
Yeah.
Branding yourself on the social media presence in your genre and area. Like most people know, like he's buy and hold guy. He's huge in sub two, and he's got a lot of properties. And he has a community that he's been doing for about 6 months, I think. But it's your brand is very important.
Dude, that's awesome. And like I said, man, I'm glad to see that you're doing well. Like I said, let me know what else I can do to help you out going forward. And whenever you come back to town, we gotta go get some good food again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on here.
All
Nice
right,
meeting
guys, y'all know how we do. We do these every weekend. If people are allowed to come live,
See
ask
y'all later.
questions, and just if you need anything, or the only thing I ask is if you get value, if we made you think we made you laugh, that you bring a friend, and we'll see everybody next week.